Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Colon DeLay back again. And yes, I have a new haircut. This is a series based on David Bentley Hart's book called Experiencing God, Being, Consciousness, Bliss. And we've looked at being already, the sheer fact that anything exists at all instead of nothing. And now we look at consciousness. It's the second window in Hart's series. And let's just think about consciousness for a moment. Right now, you're aware, you're reading or you're listening or you're thinking, and something's happening in your mind: light, image, sensation, understanding. This is consciousness. And David Bentley Hart says it is the hardest thing in the universe to explain. Science can tell us a lot: how neurons fire, how electrical impulses move through the brain, and how certain physical structures correlate with different mental states. But none of that explains consciousness itself. This is what philosophers call the hard problem. Not how the brain works. That's an easy problem. But the hard problem is, why is there experience at all? Why is there something it is like to be you? Think about it. You can imagine a universe full of beings who behave exactly like conscious beings, and they move and speak and they seem to think, but then they actually have no inner life, no experience. All those things are physical properties, but no subjective awareness. We can kind of imagine that, but we would call these beings philosophical zombies. The question is, why aren't we philosophical zombies? When all these neurons fire and the electrical impulses move, there is also something that's like. It's an inner light. It's like a self that knows itself. Materialist science has no good answer for this. The standard line is that consciousness is an emergent property of matter, that awareness arises somehow from the right arrangement of atoms, but this fails the moment you actually really examine it. You can know everything about how atoms are arranged and every detail of the physics and the chemistry, and you still won't derive the fact of experience from those facts. There's no logical connection there. It's not like deriving the wetness of water from the properties of hydrogen and oxygen. You can actually understand how those properties combine to make something wet. But you cannot derive consciousness, the quality felt of seeing something red, or of tasting something sweet, or of thinking a thought, from any arrangement of matter at all, no matter how complete your physics is. David Bentley Hart's point is that consciousness is not reducible to matter. It cannot be explained as an effect purely of physical processes. It always points to something else, something that transcends the physical order. But there's something even stranger still. Consciousness cannot even fully understand itself. So you're aware, but you can't step outside your awareness to see what that awareness itself is in any kind of objective way. The light by which you see everything else cannot see itself directly. It's like looking at your own eyes. You can't look at your own eyes unless you have a mirror to do that. And that's what makes it so peculiar. Every other mystery in the universe, the structure of atoms and the origins of the cosmos and the nature of time, all of these we can study from the outside and we can make them objects of knowledge, but we can't know that of consciousness. Consciousness is the knower. It cannot be seen using itself. So medieval philosophers had a name for this kind of reality. They called it intellect, and not the intellect of a function or a capacity, but intellect as a kind of being, something immaterial, something that is, in its nature, aware. They argued that consciousness pointed to something fundamental in reality itself, and that awareness wasn't a fluke produced by matter in rare circumstances. Instead, it revealed something true about the nature of being itself. Hart argues that if consciousness is real, and it's the one thing we cannot doubt, then it cannot be merely a byproduct of unconscious matter. And here are the implications. Matter by itself is not conscious, but somehow if matter was organized in a certain way, it becomes conscious, becomes aware of itself, becomes capable of knowing. But the two cannot actually interact using this model, not at all. So where did this capacity come from? If the universe began as unconscious matter, how did consciousness arise? And what is the source of this capacity for knowledge, for awareness, or for the inner light? Hart's answer is that it had to come from something that is fundamentally conscious. Being itself must be conscious. The ground of all existence must be aware. That doesn't mean that God thinks like we think with the language and with linear time, but it means that consciousness, awareness, and the capacity to know, these are not accidents in the universe. They're not strange byproducts of lifeless elements of matter. They're expressions of something fundamental about reality itself. And here's what it means in a practical sense. Your consciousness is not an isolated phenomenon. It's a participation in something infinite. When you're aware, when you think, when you love, you're not just producing chemical reactions in your brain, as some materialists might hold to. You're participating in a reality that is fundamentally conscious and fundamentally aware. You are, in a small and limited way, participating in what traditions call the infinite intellect, the divine awareness that holds all things in being and knows them completely. Perhaps this is why consciousness has always seemed holy to people across the ages and across the cultures, and why wise ones and mystics across traditions speak of it as sacred, because it is a genuine participation in the divine, in the mystery, in being itself. And so next time we'll talk about the second window, bliss, the fact that we desire and that we long for goodness and beauty. What does that longing tell us about reality itself? I hope you share this and subscribe. Come back soon for the next episode.